I am Nat.
And I'm Guy, and this is your home for everything Alberta Independence, broadcasting twice daily, once at 12 noon, once at 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, once on Saturday at 5 p.m., and interviews dispersed throughout the week. Although I will say, starting next week, we're just going to have a 5 p.m. show. We're transitioning the show next week, so we're building new assets, new music, everything like that. So hopefully it will be more of a meaty podcast, I would say. So...
That's a weird way to put it. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe because it really does help us out. Don't forget to hit the like button because, again, it helps more people be able to watch the live. And we always try to read all your comments at the end of each segment. However, we might not get to all of them. If you feel so inclined and you really, really want your comment read, you can always super chat, and we have memberships.
And I will say we're also trying to start make edited videos. We need to transition the show first to once a day, and then we're going to get into hopefully educational videos about Alberta independence, the state of Canada, things of that nature that will help the October 19th referendum along.
Yes. And I'll start saying hello to Glenn Gunn, who says good rainy, and more rain day, Nat and Guy. Oh, it's unfortunate it's raining. I guess our rain from here in Mexico City went all the way up to Alberta because here it stopped for now. I'm sure it'll start again.
Yeah, I heard there's going to be massive amounts of rain in the next few days in Alberta, so...
Yeah, Glenn Gunn says, did I mention the wind? It is very windy here, though.
Yeah.
Justin GP, hello. And Justin GP also says, no, I like the music. LOL.
No, we're going to keep just the chapter markers. There's new chapter markers and things like that with some new music. I have to find it. It takes quite a while to get everything just right. The opening music will still be the same. We may have a little bit of a stinger with a little bit of humor in the beginning coming up, but yeah.
And then I also have to get working on the edited videos as well. The more informational, short 10-minute videos about everything Alberta independence. And so maybe you can send it to people you know that might be doubting things or have questions, maybe being able to say, oh, watch this 10-minute video or 2-minute short that kind of explains it all. And I do want to be able to start making shorts as well.
Yeah.
But we do need a little bit more time to be able to do so. I will miss the morning shows and eventually might get them back again, but we'll see how it goes first.
Yeah, first we're just going to really fill out the one show really nicely. And then once we expand back into the morning show, it's going to be a completely different
format.
Completely different format. Still all about Alberta independence, but we want to have a variety between the two different shows.
Exactly. But now let's get into breaking news.
Yeah.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
That was quick. I was starting to breathe and now we're here.
I caught this just before we went on the air. So I guess Danielle Smith is starting her campaign and making it look like she's getting help from the citizens. It sounds like it's help from Forever Canada on the phone.
From Bruce McGonigal says, quote, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says it could easily cost up to over $400 billion for an independent Republic of Alberta to set up a credible government.
Oh, and it's great. We've been approved for $500 billion, isn't it? So, yeah, there was a research paper done with U.S. banks to see how much available capital was there for Alberta based upon its natural resources. The figure of about $500 billion came up. So, and I definitely don't think it's $50 billion. I think they're using that in the headline. She says herself it's between 25 and $50 billion. It depends what kind of government you're running here. If we're running a tight, lean government that's based upon the previous year's numbers, so we don't go over that. I don't want deficit spending. I think most Albertans don't want that either.
Good afternoon, Premier. Of course, this is going to be off topic. As a politician, you know that every campaign has a set of promises that they make to the people whose vote they want. And in this case, and this is a follow-up to a previous questioner, the independent side has offered all kinds of promises. And I just wanted your thoughts on those. You've talked about it a little bit already, but just your further reflections. You know, the economy is going to boom. In a Republic of Alberta. There's going to be probably little or even no income tax in the Republic of Alberta. You'll be able to keep your Canadian passport. It'll be easier to get projects built, projects that have to go through Canada from the Republic of Alberta. The cost will vastly outweigh the benefits, and this will just become really a bonanza of money flowing into Alberta once they have the Republic of Alberta.
Most of what he's saying, I would say, is actually right, but he's trying to be sarcastic with it. The thing is, there is already money kind of consolidated amongst private investment groups. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars to come in Alberta once there's deregulation. You also have to understand a lot of industry was set up in Ottawa for manufacturing and things like that. That will pop up in Alberta as well. So you'll have a very diverse economy even outside of natural resources.
And not be part of Canada. I mean, how do you respond to that? Just in a bread and butter money way, because they're selling it as a great financial deal for Albertans.
Well, in my earlier answer, I think I came up with almost $400 billion worth of transitional costs that we'd have to assume, in addition to somewhere between 25 to $50 billion worth of annual costs. So I think people just need to look at the facts and see whether or not what is being proposed is realistic. I can tell you from what I saw with the UK and 10 years on, how the government is now trying to get into some kind of customs union. It didn't actually work out the way they anticipated.
She's overspending, and she's overspending to the tune of over $9 billion. We don't need to spend that much. We want to run a much leaner government in Alberta. We want to get rid of corruption. We want to bring in transparency.
And also speaking about the UK, they did it completely backwards from what they originally had said they were going to do when Brexit came up. So it's not a very good example.
They also went from one corrupt global government to another corrupt global government. It's the same people running the UK as it was before.
Mm-hmm. All of our trade agreements would have to be renegotiated. That includes CUSMA, it includes a comprehensive European agreement, it includes the TPP and every other trade agreement that has been negotiated. You don't get grandfathered in on those. And so that'll have a disruption in the economy. Presumably, we'd have tariffs on all of our goods that are being traded immediately. And the other thing that I think surprised UK residents is now they had to use the long line when they went to various European countries because they didn't get to the short line because they had to travel under a different passport.
Oh no, we're going to have to use the long line and we'll be free. What a pain.
But also, when talking about renegotiation, that's not always a bad thing. I mean, you could actually negotiate things that are better for Alberta and that actually take into account what the much more productive Alberta could be coming to the table rather than what Canada is bringing right now.
Well, and I think the United States has a better idea of how they want the North America Free Trade Agreement to work, and they want to be at the center of the spoke and have individual deals with each other country they deal with. I think that would be a great strategy for Alberta as well, having one trade deal with British Columbia, another one with Eastern Canada, another one with the United States, and then another one with Mexico.
I think the folks who own homes in Spain were astonished that they had to sell them. So these are the kind of things that I think we have to be realistic about. And we have some indication based on the UK's 10-year experience that it certainly didn't pan out the way they expected. It certainly did disrupt the trade with their allies, because if you reject your allies, then they reject you. And so I think that we have to be very realistic about what it is that we'd be looking at for dollars and cents. That's why I have said that I support Remain. I hope others do too. We want to be very realistic about what kind of costs and inconveniences people would have in their life if they decided to vote otherwise. And if you want to send a message, as I hear so many do, then vote to give us the authority to change our immigration system, to tackle issues around the Senate and appointing judges and getting the federal government out of our provincial.
You already have the power to do most of that. The CPP, you should have already changed to the APP. You should have already had the Sheriff's Department up and running. So many things you promised that you have the power for, you're not doing. You're asking 9 more questions, which you already have the authority to engage in. This game that she's playing is absolutely ridiculous. She's in the driver's seat because we've put her in the driver's seat. She's now saying she couldn't call a binding question. She could have called the binding question. Then they would have told, and then they may have tried to block it, saying you didn't do a consultation. At that point, you could have done a consultation or whatever you needed to keep that thing going forward. Allowing her to say that she's not going to call a binding question in October is going to continue on after that. We need to replace her. We need to get control of the UCP. The UCP is crucially important because there is new legislation passed where even if there is a binding question called, we win that binding question, the UCP has the final say if they actually want to enact the route of independence.
It's also funny there that she said, well, when you reject your trade allies, then they reject you. Isn't that exactly what's happening to Canada with Mark Carney, what Mark Carney decided to do to the United States, and now having to grovel back, get on his knees and elbows and say MAGA? Yes, exactly. So
Let's go into
Danielle, you're
Steven
right.
Jensen here.
I
Thank
know.
you, by the way.
Yes, thank you so much to Steven Jensen for the $10 super chat saying there aren't very many services that Canada actually provides that we don't already pay for. Border services, CFIA services, federal parks, passports. We are already paying for everything else.
Well, and there's something great that comes from this. All those other deals that we've made with three-letter agencies like the WHO, the UN, NATO, things like this, all that goes away. And we don't have to engage in those anymore. And that is a huge thing. That's also a cost-saving measures. Those three-letter organizations cost Canada billions of dollars. They will not cost Alberta. We deal with our direct neighboring borders. That would be Canada, whether it's BC to the west or Eastern Canada to the east, and the US to the south. And I would also say add Mexico in there because the United States wants to build something between probably Alberta, the United States, and Mexico.
And thank you so much, Steven Jensen, once again. And they are all fear tactics. We already talked about the whole passport thing in the morning show, how they're trying to and going to be continue to try to use that as but what happens if you lose your Canadian passport? Well, we don't know how effective the Canadian passport will be in the coming years, especially as Canada continues to allow basically anybody to become Canadian and walk through the door. And countries like the US, at least for the next few years, some countries in Europe and a lot of countries in South and Central America, which are now turning towards the right, don't want to be able to have to admit Canadians just because they have the Canadian passport when we know what kind of people sometimes Canada is allowing in.
What we have to realize here is she keeps saying, Brexit didn't go the way that they thought when they tried to separate governments. No, it didn't go the way they thought when they went to the vote. And that's why they're trying to set up a double vote here where they might not even get to the binding referendum. They're trying to stretch this thing out. They're trying to game plan it so they can block it at every turn because they don't want what happened in Brexit. The problem with Brexit, there wasn't a firm understanding of how they were going to transition to the new government. They just kept the same old corrupt politicians in place. Keith Wilson is creating white papers with the business community. We're looking at a complete overhaul, a complete restructuring from the Constitution up.
Do you want to finish that video or?
No, that was pretty good. That was actually almost at the end anyway.
Thank you so much, Steven Jensen, once again. Let's go into your comments and then we'll head into Alberta. Stay free. Justin Javi says, that's a great idea because we're lacking the quick little reference videos. And yes, again, there's a lot of great people out there and content creators that are making long videos and talking and interviews, and we've done some as well, and we're trying to do the interview thing too. But I do think the more concise videos that are not news-based specifically, where it's not like, today this and this happened and it's a 10-minute video, but more going into the weeds without making it too long and where people start tuning out of them.
Oh, thank you, the real Steven Jensen again.
Steven Jensen again, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. And says Brexit didn't have a plan after the vote.
No, exactly. And they had less than a plan. They wanted to keep the same corrupt politicians in there and create a whole new system of corruption, not a whole new system of governance. And that's what the people want. We want no more politicians. We want no more lies. We want the people to make the change.
Mm-hmm. And Pete says, AI dancing French bulldogies. No, those are creepy. You can do that on your own show.
I like that. I actually watch that a lot because we have a French bulldog as well.
Yeah, obviously. Justin GP says, great opportunity to implement smaller government.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also I wanted to go back to like the educational videos that we're going to be making and stuff. It's going to be something that other people on their acts can kind of put out there. I think that's kind of lacking right now. Yeah. We need strong videos so we can put out in an easy to understand format into a lot of different groups through social media.
And if you've seen, for example, my video on population collapse, I think that's one of the last ones I edited both here and in Spanish. Mm-hmm. That sort of style. That one was a bit longer, but with like bringing up the information and the fact sheets, but also being able to give the numbers just straight.
Yeah, well, we have a teleprompter but we don't use it anymore because we do all lives. Yeah. But we have a teleprompter for edited videos, for statistics, bringing up assets that complement what we're kind of talking about. If you're talking about the stock market, you bring up a picture of the stock market, things like that. So it's more engaging and people will sit through the entire, hopefully 10 minutes.
Yes. Glenn Gunn says, that's all BS. That's a fear campaign. Not us, meaning Danielle Smith.
Well, you got to really ask yourself, the caller that called in. Now, Danielle Smith, I watch a lot of her press conferences a lot of the time when she's on podcasts and she takes call-ins, but they typically stutter. They do this and that. That seemed like a very orchestrated question from a very orchestrated questionnaire, potentially Forever Canada.
Pete says, atta girl, Danielle, hop on that fear bandwagon. Yep.
Well,
hanging right on there.
I've said Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre are the two big threats. They're the A team of what the Federalists are going to come with. Supposedly, there's a hit campaign scheduled for the next couple days to start coming out and rolling out from Doug Ford and his campaign manager. Northern Perspective talked about it today. So it's going to be very, very interesting because he's already said he's going to campaign on the ground against Alberta independence. And there's no reason for me to kind of defend off this propaganda campaign Doug Ford's going to give against Pierre Poilievre here.
True. Glenn Gunn says, wow, she's using Brexit. That's a Carney move. Says they didn't have oil and gas. Exactly.
Well, they have some oil. They just don't want to develop it. That's a strange thing a lot of people don't know about Britain.
Yeah. Glenn Gunn says Alberta has no power to change that. Ottawa does that, meaning what Danielle was speaking about. Pete says, not to mention the service we're paying for everywhere else and everyone else. Yeah.
Well, and then another thing here, they want to say, oh, they're promising no taxes. They're promising this. They're promising that. No, we're looking at the other oil-based countries that actually have less oil than Alberta, and we're seeing how they work and how they run their government and how much taxes they have. And the answer is zero.
Mm-hmm. And Justin GP says, people don't understand that they don't need their passport to access healthcare or EI, etc. It's all fear mongering. Most people do not have passports and access the services anyways. Really good. I know it's a shocking number in the US, at least, of people that actually don't have a passport because the US is so big. Most people are just used to going between states because it's basically like going between countries. Yeah. But I mean, if people don't understand they don't need their passport to access healthcare and EI, I don't know. I think there's an even bigger amount of education we have to give to these people before.
Again, they're really focusing on this passport right now. We have to realize it's not that Albertans necessarily want to access the rest of Canada. Yes, we do. And we can do that through regular travel. If we go into negotiations with Canada, which is supposed to be good faith negotiations, I highly doubt Canada is going to go into good faith negotiations. They're going to figure out how they can do a long-term weaponization of this negotiation so they can infiltrate Alberta and turn it into a liberal utopia again. It's voted conservative for the last 93 years. The main mechanism may be, well, if you want to keep your Canadian passport, we want unlimited access for anybody that wants to come into Alberta and be a citizen. And that's how they change the voting demographics over time. So it's a double-edged sword to keep your Canadian passport. It could be a way for the Canadian government to infiltrate Alberta en masse.
And again, it might start losing Canadians might start losing prestige pretty soon that they're not used to, but now they will. Pete says, move to Timbuktu and your CPP and OAS follow. And exactly, again, more fear campaign and more actual bad information. I won't call it misinformation, but bad information. Justin TP says that caller to the presser was Rick Bell from the Calgary Herald. He's all over the place, was for it, now against it.
Okay, I thought I did recognize his voice because we use a clip from him. So I'm glad you actually did know that. So he's not for Forever Canada. That's good to know. He's the same one. He's the same one that asked the question that clarified, and I actually liked him on that particular one. But
Glenn Gunn says she's turning for some reason. I'd like to know why. Well, either she's looking at a bigger seat somewhere in Ottawa, or she got convinced to.
Well, she's turning because she's realizing we're waking up to her deceit, and we want a leadership referendum here, or the leadership review, so we can get rid of her. Because Bruce Party put it lovely today on Jason Levine's podcast, saying she's not for us. We're never going to get a referendum as long as she's in power. We need a game plan on how to get her out of power. Now, we might not want to call a referendum now because her polling numbers are really high, and we have to have a strong candidate when we do go into that leadership review. Who are we going to replace her with? My best bet would be Keith Wilson after the white papers are released. He's showing a lot of leadership and he ticks all the boxes, even for moderate conservatives.
And last one, Justin GP says, people actually said you won't have access to healthcare because they'll remove your passport. You don't have access to healthcare now. They're so uninformed. Passports only allow you to travel between countries.
Yeah.
That is incredibly uninformed, sadly. And sadly, that at least some people believed it if they did start saying that.
I don't know if maybe the Canadian government will be thinking, well, maybe they'll come over here and they'll want that $87,000 of free cash that we're giving all the immigrants.
Oh yeah, maybe they can claim asylum seekers. They can be asylum seekers from Alberta. But I will say, I mean, technically, that's not completely wrong because the healthcare in Canada is so bad. Yes, you do need a passport if you want to go get better healthcare, either in the US or in Mexico. So in a way, Yeah, if they remove your passport, you're not able to go get the real healthcare that you need if you're able to pay for it. But within Canada, no, it doesn't do anything.
You look at these other countries that have massive natural resource and oil wealth, and a lot of them have free healthcare and no taxes. We should be able to have all that and more. Before Venezuela came into the picture, Alberta used to supply the United States with 55% of their oil. That's a huge amount.
And I don't even think free healthcare should be something to aim for, because it always breaks down and never fully works. We've seen it with other examples throughout the entire world that have tried it and continue to try it.
There are a few examples where it does work well, and that's in these oil-based countries.
Yes, but I would say have a private-public system.
Yeah,
you definitely want that ability.
You definitely want a private-public system. Canada is one of the only countries in the world that has a monopoly on a strictly public system.
But that's why I see,
because they want to build in corruption. That's how you build in corruption into the system.
But that's why I'm saying we shouldn't be advocating a fully free healthcare system and start people thinking about why that system isn't good and because they're living it.
Okay.
But now let's go into Alberta Stay Free, speaking of.
Free home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And hold on. I didn't get it ready. And starting with from Farm Geek, saying, quote, more Albertans are exploring sovereignty today than at any point in our history. I don't think it's because they've become radical. I think many are questioning whether government remains sufficiently accountable, transparent, and connected to the people it serves.
And this is a question a lot of people are asking around the world, especially in the EU. They're asking questions about their freedom and their sovereignty because the EU is stripping freedom from each individual country. The federal government has a much easier path to start stripping provinces of their sovereignty, and they've already started it.
Hey, Alberta. I think one of the reasons more people are beginning to question the future of this country is because many Canadians no longer feel particularly connected to decisions being made over their lives. And I don't just mean politically, I mean structurally. Because over the last few years, I think a lot of people have started noticing a growing gap between ordinary citizens and the institutions governing them. You vote in a referendum and nothing changes. You sign a citizen initiative petition with hundreds of thousands of other Albertans, and a court can still shut the process down. An elected member of parliament can cross the floor after an election and help completely shift the balance of power in Ottawa without voters ever being asked again. And after enough moments like that, people naturally begin asking themselves, how much influence do ordinary citizens actually have once decisions move into these systems? Because I think many of us grew up believing Canada was far more democratic and locally accountable than it often feels in practice. More and more authority keeps moving upward, further away from the people living with the consequences of those decisions. And I think Albertans feel that especially strongly, because this province regularly votes very differently from the direction the federal government ultimately takes. Yet Alberta still lives under those decisions anyway. And I think what many people are really searching for now is not conflict, it's accountability. A system where governments remain closer to the people they govern, where major constitutional changes require direct voter approval, where citizen referendums actually carry meaningful weight, where elected officials remain more directly accountable to voters instead of party structures and centralized institutions, where property rights are clearly protected, where taxation and spending face stronger limitations and oversight, and where ordinary people feel like their voice matters beyond simply casting a ballot every few years. Because when government becomes too distant from the people, trust starts breaking down. And I think that's part of why more Albertans are willing to at least explore the idea of sovereignty now. Not because they've become radical, but because they're beginning to wonder whether Alberta could build something more accountable, more transparent, and more directly connected to the people who actually live here. And honestly, I don't think those are unreasonable questions for people to be asking anymore.
And it's not just Alberta asking these questions. People are asking these questions all over the world. And even within Canada, there are a ton of independence movements within Canada right now. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, British Columbia, there's stuff popping up. East of Quebec, there's a couple popping up as well. I mean, people are asking questions all over the place because the government's supposed to be made up of the citizens, but somehow it's now made up of these elites that nobody knows. And we're wondering how they got there and why they're making decisions not connected to the people's best interests.
And because it's become a system of replication where the bad ideas just replicate throughout the world. So it becomes easier for everybody to start looking at, well, it's happening here and here and here. Oh, it stopped happening over here. Why did it stop happening over here? What did the citizens do? What kind of politicians are they electing now?
Well, and again, we don't have to tie ourselves to these three-letter agencies or international bodies. As soon as we become independent, the WHO cut off, the UN cut off, we can renegotiate with the specific trading partners that we want and that we need.
Thank you so much, Stephen Jensen,
thank
for
you.
that $5 super chat saying you cannot lose your Canadian citizenship or passport. Look at that Omar Kader case. Or Kader, I can never say that name. But yeah, exactly, the bus guy.
Well, there was a little bit of a debate on the Jason Levine show with Bruce Party, and I think Bruce Party was right. You could lose your citizenship if Canada wants to if they want to change the laws within Canada, but we know they want to flood Canada with 100 million immigrants, so they're unlikely to change their immigration policies. Dual citizenship is normalized in Canada almost more than any other country. So I don't see them canceling their idea that they're going to float their GDP by bringing mass amounts of immigrants in.
And also the Liberals very recently passed that whole thing where if you have some ancestor that is Canadian, you can now apply for Canadian citizenship too. So, I mean, you could just lose it and then if you really want it, reapply.
Well, and you can't have your Canadian citizenship revoked when you're actually born in Canada. A lot of people from Alberta are actually transplants from other provinces, especially with their population growing as much as it has in the last few years.
True. Okay, now let's go to, we showed this one in the morning, but it's important. Craig Lubimov says, a hug. Pierre Poilievre is coming to Alberta to campaign on what? And again, Pierre Poilievre's message was, our message is that all of Canada needs to wrap its arms around Alberta, choking it, like more than it already is choking Alberta.
We don't need hugs. We need change, and we don't need change to come from politicians that are going to lie to us and can't enact that change. We want it to come from the citizens. And when we make that change, we want the citizens to be empowered and the elites to be disempowered. We want to change the framework, the way the Constitution works. The politicians can't make those changes because they're playing in the sandbox that was created by the global elites there.
It's also dangerous for Poilievre because a lot of his voters are realizing and waking up and saying, you can't do anything for us now. You haven't been able to do anything for us in the past. What makes us think that you are going to continue to not do anything moving forward?
And again, Northern Perspective was talking about a hit campaign that's supposed to be initiated over the next few days against Pierre Poilievre to try to get him unseated by Doug Ford and his campaign manager and other political elites in Ottawa. If that happens, if Poilievre is unseated because a vote of inconfidence, or they're able to foment this inconfidence, what do you think is going to happen to National Conservatives at that point? They're all going to want independence because independence is going to be the only game in town at that point.
We will be back in my home province of Alberta to campaign for a united country. And our message is that all of Canada needs to wrap its arms around Alberta. Let's ensure that every Albertan knows that Canada loves Alberta, that Canada is Alberta, Alberta is Canada. We need to have a strong, united nation. We will be back.
It literally sounds like we're going to come choke Alberta.
He doesn't have,
love.
if he's going to campaign with that on the ground in Alberta, we're going to laugh him out of the freaking room. He sounds like a child. We're talking about adult issues here.
Someone please make a shirt that says, come hug this, Pierre. Or something like that. Put like a buffalo or something on the other side. Okay. Kathy Flood, though, says, quote, you're absolutely correct. We are not victims. We definitely aren't quitters. We face challenges head on and blaze new trails whenever opportunity presents. Ottawa has done nothing but make life challenging for us, and we will face it head on by blazing our own trail onward and upward to Alberta independence.
Yeah, Canada's too big at this point. I mean, you have to admit the power Mark Carney has with the majority government. There's one thing you're going to do with the majority government, and that's federalize everything, especially natural resources. If Poilievre gets in there, he's going to have those mechanisms built for him. I'm sure he's going to continue on with that federalization. But I'll also say this, there are some liberal provinces in Canada, and if they had a hardcore majority conservative government, they wouldn't agree with it and they would be wanting independence as well. It's time for Canada to maybe look at individual provinces for leading themselves. They all have different interests. They all have different natural resource sectors or business sectors. They're big enough to stand on their own 2 feet. And if they're not, they could be if they would just access their natural resources.
And also back then when things were in a way less interconnected and in another way more interconnected. It made sense to have something more centralized maybe in their heads.
I don't think it ever did.
But I'm trying to, in my opinion, it never did. But maybe in the past, people looked at it as, oh, it's going to help each and every single aspect and area. But I do think from the beginning, Canada should have been either 2 or more separate little
Alberta and Saskatchewan
provinces.
were never asked to be part of this. So nobody in Alberta or Saskatchewan ever agreed to that or ever thought that was an actual thing. They were forced into this and they were given the short end of the stick.
Yes. And lastly, from Sophia Rosa says MAGA.
Oh, I absolutely love this shirt. I want to get me one of these shirts, but why don't you read it for everybody?
It says, prison is perfect for liberals. 1, everyone is equal. 2, free food and housing. 3, no guns. 4, universal health care. And 5, same-sex relationships.
That is just...
That's where a lot of them do belong.
Oh,
now.
God, that is such a perfect shirt.
And that was it. So now we'll go back into your comments and then into Alberta politics.
Yeah.
Pete says, we're pumping some 5 million barrels a day now. Who seriously is going to cut that off? We don't like you anymore, so we'll hurt ourselves. Ridiculous.
And they're going to try. They're going to try to play hardball, but we have the United States there. We make deals with them to support us over that initial stage of having to play hardball with British Columbia, because that's the province we're going to have to isolate, play hardball with, and make sure we get access to the coast.
Mm-hmm. Justin GP says, good point on that passport, healthcare, and that. Again, that's a way to counteract that and say, oh, you can't get healthcare if you don't have a passport. Yeah, that's true, because I can't fly down somewhere else that isn't Canada because Canada's healthcare system is so broken.
Can't get to Mexico because they have state-of-the-art treatment, which Canada refuses to give its citizens.
And Glenn Gunn says, you have a point, guy. I don't remember on what, but at least you had one.
Once in a while, I have one. And just letting Nat know that. Thanks.
Justin GB says, just a heads up, there's a meeting tonight for APP folks. Zoom call, look for the email link. So anybody on the APP or volunteers or canvassers, I'm guessing, look through your email for that Zoom link.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's absolutely crucial, because after watching the Bruce Party interview again on Jason Levine, it is absolutely crucial that we take over the UCP. I didn't realize some of the new legislation and rules they brought in, or even if we win a binding vote, the UCP has the last say whether we go forward with independence or not. We need to make sure we control the UCP and that we control the leader of the UCP, which we have control over neither right now. Supposedly we have 60% within the UCP. We need a higher percentage, and we need to replace the leadership of that, whether it's after October or however long it takes. There's a hurdle there that now lies with the UCP, even if we vote for independence.
Thank you for letting us all know, Justin GP. Pete says, pretty screwed up when Alberta farmers are smarter than U of T graduates. Well, I don't think it's screwed up. Farmers are some of the most intelligent people because they're able to sustain not just themselves and their families, but everybody else around them.
The working class, the farmers are the working class, the farmers and families are the center of society, and everything should be based around that in a real economy. In the Canadian economy, what we have is a bunch of economists pushing money around through international communities and themselves. They're trying to make money out of thin air by printing money, and that does not build a real economy in any way, shape, or form.
And Pete also says, then again, they always have been. And I do agree with that. And Pete, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying, don't shut off BC until I get home. Because Pete is stuck in BC right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully you were able to get past a bunch of that rain that you were telling us it was going to start. Sean says, why did she need to use an AI script? I hear them all the time and I can't stand them. Because people are lazy. And script writers too now. Pete says, given a choice, I'll take my Alberta citizenship. Again, I think that might actually hold even better, more and more power within other countries than the Canadian one pretty soon.
Well, and again, we need to wake up to the fact we want to keep Alberta strong and free. And we have a 93-year record of voting conservatism. I do not want to go into negotiations with Canada saying, if you want to keep your Canadian citizenship, you have to allow any Canadians that want to come into Alberta to gain Albertan citizenship. That's how you're going to turn Alberta liberal real quick. And that's going to be a mechanism and a game plan for the federal government to try to get control over Alberta. So we may want to think long and hard now, do we really want the Canadian citizenship?
And Sean says, oh, thank goodness Ted Cruz won't lose his Canadian citizenship being born in Canada.
Oh, and I wanted to talk about something else. If we throw any events or anything like that, we may want to think about bringing Tom McDonald up to Alberta. He's from Edmonton, so that would be absolutely fantastic. He must be in support of Alberta independence, you would think. So.
Yeah, and I've been suggesting, and I've even been saying, I'd love to interview him, of course. I don't think he'll will be able to see our messages even, but I would love to interview Tom McDonald and Ben Bankus as well. So we're working on those next as well, hopefully.
I don't think we are working on those, but...
Well, I'm working on emailing them, yes. But whoever can get the message out there to maybe try to reach out, somebody a bit bigger, to Tom McDonald to maybe bring him into... Or some event.
He makes a lot of his own music videos and things like that. If he just made a little ad or anthem for Alberta independence, that would be freaking fantastic. I mean, an anthem, man, that would go a long way.
Pete says Muslim values are Canadian values, Albertan values, shut up and pay up. That's what they want them to be, yeah. Sean says, I noticed that people who went out west have descendants who are self-reliant and want to be left alone. I noticed all our current West Coast leaders are all from back east and don't get the OG people.
Yeah, and they're trying to replace those original settlers and those original families from Western Canada. And even people in the East that have those values are moving out to the West because they're seeking that. And the elites in the West are realizing that. And that's why they have this massive plan for mass immigration.
And lastly, Canadian Spider-Man says, hello and good day. Nat and the guy just finished watching your last show. Good to see you live. Hopefully you don't get sick of us, but thank you for being here and for watching our last show as well.
Well, and again, next week, we're just going to have a show on at 5 p.m. We are retooling everything. Next week's show is going to be the exact same layout, but the week after that, it's going to be completely revamped at that point.
But now let's go into Alberta politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And I put quite a few stories in this one.
Yes, you did. Alberta Politics, the CBC Watcher said, right, Alberta Politics says, Howard Anglin saying, well, the separatists don't have answers to most of the key questions about separation. I think there are a lot of people in central Canada and Ottawa that need to step up and give some answers to the questions Alberta has been asking.
And we played this on the morning show, but there's two clips we brought over from the morning show. This was one of them. They're changing their strategies because they're realizing that soft middle doesn't want a hard push against Alberta independence. They want them to admit there's a few problems and try to make a few changes. Between the first referendum and the second referendum, that's when the government's going to try to throw the goodie bag at us, I believe. But they're getting the same response from their polling groups that Keith Wilson is getting. That's why you're seeing much softer messaging and actually admitting there needs to be some change.
Well, the separatists don't have answers to most of the key questions about separation. I think there are a lot of people in central Canada and Ottawa that need to step up and give some answers to the questions Alberta has been asking. Because I don't want to dismiss for a second the grievances that Alberta has raised. And I think one has to always distinguish between Alberta grievances and Alberta separation. One is based on facts. The other is a strategy. I think it's a misguided strategy, but it's a strategy. You alluded to oil and gas. This has been a long-standing problem. The attitude from some in central Canada, the barely concealed contempt and sometimes the open contempt for the Alberta economy and the way of life in Alberta is something that wouldn't be tolerated with any other province. The vast majority of Albertans, polls show at least 70%, and I would include even more who might vote for separation out of frustration but don't really want to leave Canada at the end of the day. The vast majority of Albertans love Alberta and they love Canada. I'm not sure a lot of people in Ottawa can say the same thing. I know they love Canada, but when they look at Alberta, Albertans at least don't feel a lot of love. So I think it's incumbent upon central Canada to look at this as a wake-up call, to do things that frankly are not just rewarding the separatist sentiment or the separatist activists, but doing them because it's actually the right thing both for Alberta and for the Canadian economy.
You are describing the situation that the federal government ought, in your mind, do things, and potentially in the 5 months we have before this referendum vote. What are those things, and do you have confidence that the Carney Liberals will actually do any of them?
I don't have confidence, but hope springs eternal.
And I don't believe they're going to do anything. Then after the vote comes back and it's 60 to 70%, they're going to say, okay, we've woken up. We're going to make some changes. Then they're going to throw a goodie bag of things that are going to actually federalize Canada and not be an actual benefit to the citizens themselves. That's what I believe. No matter what happens and what kind of goodie bag they give to us, that second referendum needs to happen, because that is going to answer the question whether the federal government actually fixed it or they didn't fix it. I don't want to see a goodie bag of things thrown and then saying, oh, we don't have to have a second referendum now. We fixed it. No, that's not the way it works.
Some of them are things that you brought up and mentioned. So increased representation for Alberta, or at least a commitment to increasing the representation of Alberta in the House of Commons. Meaningful action on the laws that are holding back the Alberta energy economy and, frankly, the Canadian energy economy. The Prime Minister has acknowledged that there is a serious problem. He's created a major projects office as an end run around the Trudeau-era laws. But the mere fact that he has to bypass the existing laws or create one-off exceptions to them shows that the laws themselves are the problem. And particularly now, hopefully with Guilbeault out of the caucus, some common sense can return to the Liberal Party, and they can actually make meaningful progress on changing the laws themselves, not just creating end runs around them. Another one would be something that Danielle Smith has asked for, and it's a subject to another referendum question, which will be asked in October, which is more input on the appointment of judges to the Alberta Court of Appeals and the Alberta Court of King's Bench. Yeah, these are things that can be done. They would at least be indications that somebody in central Canada is paying attention.
Okay, and we can leave it there, but you can see that they're going to make a long-term strategy here before the referendum, after the referendum, and how they can delay things, how they can derail this at every single turn.
Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying, my bumper sticker is Alberta, fit in or get out. I like it.
Well, and I did see there was a lot of organizations in Alberta raising money right now. I seen Corey Morgan start a little organization that was just about yard signs and things like that. He said he was expecting to maybe raise a couple $1,000s. Within 2 days, he raised over $20,000. So people are giving. These organizations are being very transparent. At least Corey Morgan's is. He's showing where he's spending the money, how he's spending the money. He's even spending it locally, meaning he has a local print shop printing everything out, which I think is also much appreciated.
Yes. And
why don't you read the fringe, the unacceptable fringe here?
Oh, because I didn't see it. Derek, unacceptable fringe, hello, says Danielle Smith admitted over the weekend she's going to kick the can down the road if the referendum wins. And we've been saying that for a long time.
And that's exactly what I was saying. And I'm like, we need to oust her. We need to take control of the UCP. If anybody hasn't seen the Jason Levine interview that took place today on his live show with Bruce Barty, he was outlining just this. Him and Jason Levine had quite a debate on it because they had a little bit different points of view, but it really flushed out the topic. And I'm really with Bruce Barty. She's not helping us in any way, shape, or form. The question is, once we try to oust her, is it even going to be possible right now? We're probably going to have to wait to after October 19th, and we're going to have somebody strong to replace her, like a Keith Wilson or somebody like that. We also need to control the UCP because, like Bruce Barty was saying, they now have a mechanism there. Even if we have a binding question and we win that referendum, the UCP has a way to ixnay that at the very end. They have the final say, which is absolutely ridiculous. That means we have to control the UCP and the leader.
Thank you, Derek. And while we're at it, Mike Freedom Honey says smash the like button. And yes, thank you so much, Mike. And again, Mike's interview came out yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting to learn more of his backstory and everything that he has done and also has done for veterans, children, etc. So very remarkable story as well. And we were very honored to be able to speak with him.
Yeah.
And Derek, since we're reading them, Unacceptable Fringe says, I'm going to start an organization to get the French into the USA. I'll hire all donors as sponsored employees. Win-win. Bring him up. Okay, now where were we? Here. From CTV News Calgary, quote, AFL's McGowan says separatists and Premier don't speak for Alberta workers and families following day of protest.
Is this not the BLM logo or what the hell is it?
It's a power fist.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even a power fist. It's the black power fist on top of that. This is literally the BLM logo with, an excitement or question, exclamation mark there. Absolutely ridiculous. This is about as communist as it comes.
That's a communist.
And Oh man, I was reading another article about this and they were talking about they represent workers and families. Just the other day, I was saying we need to use messaging against workers and families because that's what a lot of the NDP and these other communist organizations claim to represent. They don't represent that. We are faith, family, and freedom. We've seen the conservative, the new conservative leader within British Columbia tried to steal our slogan, which was absolutely ridiculous.
I was going to say something, but I forgot. It is absolutely ridiculous. And
the real Stephen Jensen once again.
I was just going to say they like fists. Places where they go. Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying I bought 200 signs for whistle stop area. Great.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. And Stephen Jensen is always doing the actual work and the real work and really supporting a bunch of different things. So
yeah, and again,
it's a good example as well.
Yeah.
If able, good example. Thank you so much, Stephen Jensen.
And I just like to say once again, I didn't realize that Tom McDonald was from, I believe, Edmonton. He would be absolutely fantastic if we can get him to make a video, an anthem, or come up there and represent a little bit. Because I think a lot of his messaging is right in line with Alberta independence. And I think it really sticks it to the government as well.
Because, if anybody knows how to contact him or can contact him, please do so. Tom McDonald. Dan Williams says, quote, it's time to lead, not leave. This is our country too, and Albertans should be at the table shaping our future, not leaving it to the elites who spent the last decades trying to remake Canada without us. And continuing down that path is the best way to do so.
Team Canada is starting to unite Poilievre, Danielle Smith, and this dude here. This is absolutely ridiculous. But again, the reason I'm showing this is they're getting the same polling back that Keith Wilson is getting, running a more neutral campaign, more in the middle campaign. Don't be so polarizing because it's going to turn off that soft middle. So you see not only Alberta independents using that strategy, but now you're seeing the other side use it as well.
On October 19th, there's going to be a vote on the future of the province of Alberta. Many Albertans have strong and passionate feelings about this. And I can tell you right now, I'm committing along with Premier Smith and the United Conservative Government to fight for this province within a strong and unified Canada. We have to recognize that so many of the challenges we face today are not just economic in terms of the frustration between Alberta and Ottawa, they're also cultural. And if those who run campaigns intend only to push those frustrated Albertans further, I can tell you they'll have a more divided province and country. But if instead they acknowledge that radical ideology and an attempt to politicize patriotism will end in disaster, and they turn instead to a path of unity that is Canada's history, where proud Albertans, and even those, yes, who are conservative, feel like they belong, well, then I think we have a path forward as a province. And that will be what I'm fighting for.
And this is the new messaging coming out, not just from him. I'm seeing a ton of people coming out with a similar through line. They're softening their message. They're trying to go after the middle. This is exactly what Keith Wilson said his organization is trying to do as well. I think this is where the battle is ultimately going to be fought. That's why we want to transition to more educational videos using statistics. This is also why Keith Wilson's white papers are going to be crucially important. The other side has not done long-term studies on the benefits and how much things are going to actually cost and statistics once Alberta actually leaves. So when we put up our statistics, they're not going to have anything to kind of counter it with. And we also have another level of statistics, which is the downfall of Canada. Everybody sees Canada absolutely collapsing right now. It's in a recession.
Exactly. And lastly, Jason Levine says, quote, again, Kenny is wrong. Everything he lists is Alberta's land under the 1930 Alberta Natural Resources Act. Jason, seriously, if you're looking to persuade anyone to stay in Canada, start by giving one positive reason to do so. The disrespect, fear, and lies are not helping your argument. Because, Jason, Kenny, you there with the bunch of flags.
I'll actually say this. He got me with this talking point. I didn't know this. So this is one of the reasons I brought it up. Because when I was thinking after this is like, oh, this is where a lot of the money is going to have to go within separation. A lot of that land is already ceded. So...
but yes, Jason Kenney, a bunch of flags, says on issue after issue, separatists just wave their magic wand to wish away serious problems with secession, myth, federal lands and federal buildings don't add up too much. And then he has a... Do you want me to go into it or no?
No, that's fine. And it's not a magic wand. A lot of problems are literally solved overnight once we declare independence. We automatically cut the ties with international organizations, three-letter organizations like the WHO, taking sovereignty away from countries and making health decisions for them, like the UN, which massive amounts of money you're obligated to. We want to run a tight, non-corrupt government. We want trading relations with the people that are at our borders, like the United States. States. And we obviously want trade relationships with Canada as well, but we don't want to be obligated to globalist organizations anymore. And overnight, you cut all ties with all these global organizations.
True. And again, fear and fear mongering. That's basically what they run on. But we'll go to comments and then into Alberta personalities. And I'm being by myself. Jesse GP says, yep, Mike is awesome. Yes, he is good honey too. And I'd love to try it. And says, you should try his honey on your weird pizza nut. Once I'm in Alberta, I will. Don't worry about it. I can even make a video about it, review it. And for all of you that I can't talk. For all of you that don't know, I do put honey on pizza, and apparently people find that weird. Canadian Spider-Man, hello again. And hold on. Stephen Jensen says to Derek or the Unacceptable Fringe, very cool idea. We'll see you tonight. Jesse GB says, Nat, get your man out of the gutter with the fist comment. I'm sorry. I thought nobody heard. Sometimes my true colors come through. Sean says they like professional science, apparently. Todd says, I can't believe Tom hasn't yet made a song about it. I know. That's why from the beginning, when we started talking more heavily about Alberta independence, I kept saying, somebody please get Tom MacDonald on the phone. Of course, we don't have his contact number, but...
And also, we're in such need of an anthem. Yeah. And to have an anthem coming from Tom MacDonald would be freaking fantastic. It would be played all over the place, not just within Alberta, but it would be played on a worldwide scale. He really represents a lot of conservatives when it comes to music because he is independent on top of that. Yeah. This would blow the conversation up into international waters.
True. Pete says Nat has to play hardball with the guy from time to time. When do I play hardball?
Well, one other thing I would say it would almost be worth to pay Tom MacDonald to make an anthem for Alberta independence because it would be that big. We
can, yeah. Rage Against Machine says history shows elites, financial, political, corporate often shape systems in ways that benefit themselves. Of course, because why else would you be there and do that and sacrifice as much as they say they do? No reason. Hold on.
And one other thing, we're having a big trouble breaking through to the youth.
Yes.
A Tom MacDonald song would do that in a big way.
And Mike Freedom Honey had said, again, smash the like button. Thank you so much, Mike. And go watch Mike's interview as well. And The Fringe.
What's today, Monday?
Yes.
Or Tuesday?
Monday.
I think Mike's going to be on The Fringe tonight. So
everybody
go watch Mike
and
on The Fringe.
On the Unacceptable Fringe.
And we're always done before 7, so our show usually runs right into theirs.
Unknown guy. Someone else. Unknown guy says Pierre and the CPC equals more of the same. Exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting username.
Well, it's going to be interesting if Doug Ford starts this hit campaign with his his campaign manager against Pierre Poilievre, because he's not going to have a lot of people in Alberta saying a peep against it. I don't like either of them at this point, but if Pierre's going to campaign on the ground against Alberta independence this summer, I say Doug Ford, go after him.
And hold on. Sean says we call those people the managerial elite. Yes. And also says, hard to change someone's mind when you call them a name and obviously gaslight them. No one has read How to Win Friends and Influence People anymore, apparently. No, apparently not. Apparently they think that this is a tactic that works the most, even though it's the one that works the least. Sean says, will the Tom MacDonald song also feature French for those French-speaking Albertans? The opposite. I hope it has no French.
He could put one line in French as a meme against him.
True. And hold on. Derek on Acceptable Fringe says, great interview with Mike. Fringe approved. Very proud of our little Mike. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching it as well. But again, Mike's story is super interesting.
Oh, it is super interesting. And I didn't know a lot of the backstory. And a lot of people that are coming in the comments saying, I didn't know Mike's backstory either. Yeah. It was really interesting. Our camera started breaking on his interview, but right after the interview.
Yeah. So when we were saying goodbye, everything started breaking down like one thing at a time.
It was just the batteries, but
yeah. Christian 997 says liberals fight for power, conservatives fight to conserve that power. Canadian government is a corrupted Pandora box fighting to keep you from hope and freedom in order to control.
Yeah, they're going to want
both mechanisms at the same time.
After that first referendum, when we blow it out of the water, they're going to throw a goodie bag of things because they want us to keep. They want to keep us playing in their system. No matter what they give us, the point is to get out of that system to gain independence and freedom. This is what's valuable in the new modern age, I believe, is independence and freedom from global elites, but also these massive countries that are implementing policies that benefit only the elites and not the people themselves.
Mm-hmm. And Derek, an acceptable French, says, you guys want a replacement for Danielle? I offer myself as tribute. I kind of read that as, I hate the Hunger Games movies and books, but like I read that as Katniss Everdeen, like, I volunteer as tribute when you're running to the front. Someone should make a meme of that. James Hunt says, I came in late, but about the passport part, Carney has 3 of them. If he restricted passports, do you think he'd give up his?
Yeah, and I will say this.
Because he's Albertan first, apparently.
Going back to that fringe comment, I have been really looking at Danielle's polling numbers, the ability to oust her and things like that. And the polling numbers are going down as far as ousting her goes. It's getting harder and harder. And we're going to need somebody. And I know the fringe kind of keeps pushing Keith Wilson. And I think that's the best option that we have. If we want to oust Danielle Smith, it's not going to be like trying to oust Jason Kenney when we did that. We're going to need a suitable replacement that people actually want to be there, that can do a good job. So I think Keith Wilson is that person. I also don't think now's the right time. We're going to have to wait to after October 19th.
And lastly, Rucking Around says, Dan Williams is the next crop of politicians. We do not need career politicians in the Alberta Republic.
Yeah.
No. And that's one of the things I go hard against both here and in my Spanish channel is career politicians that are only there to further their own power. And it becomes increasingly obvious once you look into both their trajectories, but also their objectives.
Well, and maybe this goes back to the Fringe's comment as well, as he says he volunteers himself. I was watching Jason Levine and Bruce Party talk today, and they were saying the candidates for 2027 have to get their nominations now or put in some kind of paperwork now so they're eligible for 2027. We need a lot of different people to take over these MLA spots. I don't even know if we have enough. I don't know how it works. I don't know what the game plan behind the scenes is going. I know Mitch Sylvester is probably looking into a lot of that, but a lot of YouTube content creators have won people's confidence inside of Alberta, whether it's the Fringe, whether it's Jason Levine, whether it's Mike Freedom Honey. These are people we need to be putting in the paperwork so they're ready for 2027, or so at least we have candidates ready. So
if they want to.
If they want to, yeah. But what I'm saying is it hasn't been so much in the forefront what's going on with the 2027 elections. And we obviously need to take over the UCP at this point. So that's going to be a huge moment in time. But a lot of things we have to do now in order to make those people eligible for 2027.
And hold on one second. Rusty, hello, Rusty says all they have is threats. Any of Smith's issues are non-issues. Once the taxes get cut, tariffs won't mean anything.
Yeah.
And also says, bah, I'm done listening to her forked tongue lies. So are we. Portofino says the Constitution is paper towel or toilet paper, both and one. And Portofino also says Diaz won't last until November. Danielle Smith won't last until November.
Yeah, we're going to kind of see what happens. And I'm all, man, I was kind of on the fence. Like, is she working with it? She's 100% against us. We need to get rid of her. If you haven't seen Jason Levine and Bruce Party on today's live that he had, absolutely fantastic.
Yes, but now let's go into Alberta Personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And starting with from Jeff Rath, a whole lot of personality, saying, hey, y'all, watch this. Says he voted for Carney, but who did you actually get?
The globalists.
Meet Diana Fox Carney, born in Britain, raised in privilege. Her father managed a wealthy estate. She attended Marlborough College, one of England's most elite boarding schools. The same school as Kate Middleton, Princess of Wales. This is not a middle-class background. This is old British money. At Oxford, she earns not 1, but 3 advanced degrees: philosophy, politics, economics, international relations, agricultural economics. She is not just the Mark Carney's wife. She is a fully credentialed member of the global policy class. And at Oxford, she meets Mark Carney, 2 elite networkers, 1 Canadian, 1 British aristocracy adjacent, both studying economics at one of the world's most exclusive universities. They marry in 1994. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Diana's sister is Lady Tanya Rotherwick, married into British aristocracy. Her husband, Robin Kaiser, is the 3rd Baron Rotherwick. They own Cornbury Park, a 5,000-acre private estate in Oxfordshire, England. This is the family Mark Carney married into. In 2013, photos emerged from a festival held on the Cornbury Park estate. Mark and Diana are there. Standing near them, Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted in 2021 of trafficking, currently serving 20 years in federal prison. Now here's what Carney's camp wants you to believe: that Maxwell was simply an acquaintance who bumped into them at a public event. But this wasn't a public event. It was held on Diana's sister's private estate. And according to multiple reports, Maxwell was a long-standing personal house guest of Lady Rotherwick, frequently staying on the property. This wasn't a chance encounter. Maxwell was a guest of the family. Carney gave no on-camera statement, no direct answer. An anonymous source handled it quietly. Canadian media ran one cycle and moved on. Now,
okay, and we can leave it there. And it's the elites of the elites and the globalists and the most despicable people that are running Canada, and they're with direct ties going back to the city of London. And they're using Canada as a weapon against the United States and Donald Trump. The entire globalist class wants to wait Trump out. They're praying to God they get Newsom in there and they can go right about their business again.
I think it might be because those in the East that formed what initially was that bit of Canada were the ones that still wanted to swear loyalty to the king and wanted to be ruled under a king. And now they continue to be ruled under kings. However, Alberta were coming up, and people within Alberta, Saskatchewan, came up from the U.S. itself. So there's a different mentality, even going back generations since the beginnings. And Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the I saw it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says, watch Talking to Albertans. I'm in the yellow safety jacket with a hood. Nasty, rainy, windy day. Alberta weather, not PUSSY Forever Canada weather.
We'll check it out right after we're done here.
Yes.
Well, actually, we go into the Fringe usually after our show. That's
but
why,
I'll watch it.
That's why we end at the time we do. But after I watch the Fringe, I'll watch that.
Yes, to see you. But thank you for letting us know to watch out for you as well. And secondly, you always do your same caveat whenever we bring him up.
Oh, God. Every time I have to do the caveat, I absolutely hate his constitutional proposal. It's absolutely horrible. But I'm telling you, I profile him more than anybody because he does give freaking amazing statements. Outside of his constitution, he makes great statements. And I think he would normally be a great leader. The problem is we're not trying to fight for independence in order to make a constitution that's exactly the same, that leads to the same results.
That would be Brexit.
That being said, yeah, that would be Brexit. That being said, Matthew Rowley, again, with an amazing statement here.
Saying, I find it interesting that Forever Canada people think the people in the rest of Canada are so hateful and vindictive. I do not believe that Canada will harm itself just to spite Albertans.
I watched the debate the other day between Jason Kenney and Keith Wilson, and it was a very good debate. We'll do more discussion of it as the time goes on. But one of the things that I noticed in the debate that I thought should be addressed is a serious problem that Mr. Kenney particularly, but the Forever Canada campaign has, and maybe they haven't thought about it, but the problem is they're very nasty, very unkind, very derogatory way of speaking about the rest of Canada. As they were talking in the debate, Mr. Kenney said, Canada, if we separate, would instantly revoke passports. They would shut down our borders and our trade. They would block pipelines. They would stop us from exports. They would do everything in their power to harm us. I found that quite an interesting take from people who are attempting to defend the idea of staying in Canada. Basically, their argument was, we must stay in Canada because if we don't, Canadians will hurt us. Now, I happen to think something different. Yes, we do need independence. Yes, we do need to separate ourselves from Ottawa and Ottawa's policies. But that does not mean that everybody in Canada hates Alberta. That does not mean that if we separate, Canada will automatically attack us, assault us, do all that they can to harm us. I think that's a gross attack on very good people. And while we do have disagreements with Ottawa, while we do see the Constitution as broken, this does not mean that we believe that everybody in the rest of Canada is out to get us. So I don't quite understand what Mr. Kenney is trying to achieve with this line of attack. This idea that everybody in Canada is giving us an option of either staying as hostages within Confederation or going and risking having them deliberately destroy us. Especially because having the rest of Canada deliberately attack us by stopping our trade and by harming us in some sort of a war is also to a trade war, is also to harm themselves. They would be cutting off their nose to spite their face, as the saying goes, willfully doing things that would crash their own economy in order to punish us for exercising our democratic rights. So I don't fully understand their concept, but I think they have been utterly and completely unjust to the rest of Canada. And quite frankly, I think Mr. Kenney owes Canada an apology for taking such a harsh and unkind line towards them. As far as we in the Renew Alberta camp go,
okay, and you can leave it there. And I will say a couple other things that Kenya has said. On stage, he literally implied the leaders of the Alberta independence movement should be arrested. It's not a well-known clip. I'm going to bring it back up. We've played it 2 or 3 times on this show. But what he said is, in Catalonia, they crushed their independence movement by arresting all the leaders. Maybe we need to do the same in Canada. And then the commentator for that was live on stage with him said, no, you can't say that. This is going out live on the internet. She started panicking. That person was Jin Gerson.
Jin Gerson is from the line.
And another thing Jason Kenney had said, he goes, we have family members and coworkers that are separatists. We need to cut ties with them. This is absolutely ridiculous. Us on the independent side are not saying we need to cut ties. We're saying we want to plant seeds and have conversations
and educate.
And even if we can't plant those seeds and have those conversations, we don't want to break good relationships with our family members and coworkers.
And again, it just goes to further exemplify why Albertans want to leave and how they've been treated and how the rest of Canada apparently looks at the rest of Alberta, or at least those in power want the rest of Canada to look at people in Alberta because they're so different.
Well, and you have to think, and I've brought it up a couple of times now, they're going after a hit campaign on Pierre Poilievre over the next few days, supposedly. Northern Perspectives talked about it. If they manage to get Poilievre out of power and put Doug Ford or Jason Kenney in there, I don't think it's going to happen. But if they do, it's going to be an all-out assault on Alberta independence.
And lastly, someone that kind of brought up one of the points I usually bring up, Gen Xer says, quote, young Canadian just dropped a brutal truth bomb on Mark Carney and the Liberals. The exact demographic that got them elected, seniors over 50, is now getting screwed. And this would be a good idea to talk to for those people that are worried about their CPP, OAS, etc.
It's no secret that the demographic of people in Canada that got Mark Carney and the Liberals elected were typically older, people above the age of 50. So you would think that Mark Carney and the Liberals would cater to that group of people as a thank you for getting them elected in the first place. But it's scary to me to know that they're willing to screw over the exact voter base that got them elected. They are cutting funding for old age security. They are cutting funding for senior citizens' homes. They've put CPP on the balance sheet for the government to make it seem like Canada's in good financial standing. You can't put that on the balance sheet. It's not the government's asset. That asset belongs to Canadians as payouts for their pensions. If it's on the balance sheet, it implies that the Canadian government can spend it. So the same week that the government announces that they're screwing over the voter base that got them elected, which is the older people here in Canada, they're also announcing that they're giving another couple $100 million to Ukraine. Ukraine, the country that their government is funding a $1 billion ski resort to increase tourism. Instead of funding their own war, my tax dollars, my neighbor's tax dollars, my family's tax dollars, my community tax dollars are funding their war while they build a ski resort. We're not doing that here in Canada. Progress, infrastructure, development is decreasing here. New home builds are decreasing here in Canada, but we're supporting the infrastructure and development of another country with our tax dollars. It doesn't make any sense. Mark Carney and the Liberals, they're not supporting Canadians. They're not supporting the people who voted them in, but they're willing to send millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of dollars to other countries.
And also do creative accounting regarding the technical recession, as they call it, that they brought us into.
Well, and Trump in the U.S. cut off most funding to LGBTQ organizations on a global basis because a lot of the money was being rerouted into political funds and other things. Now they're calling on Mark Carney and Canada to step up to fund LGBTQ causes on a global basis, not just inside of Canada. This is absolutely crazy what's going on. The globalists are trying to wait Trump out at this point.
But now we'll go into your comments and then into Alberta's Canada. Sean says, I just figured out the best argument for Alberta independence. After independence, Canada will dramatically lower its carbon output, getting that much closer to net zero.
That's a fantastic
argument. That would be a good one, yeah. Want to get closer to net zero? Let Alberta go. Let Alberta be productive over there. Sean says, Carney hit the jackpot, apparently. With that lady? No. Look at her. I will say. Sean says that E-list stuff is just conjecture. Remember, Skeletor and Darth Vader are on there too. Yes. And Pete says like they'll shut down Sarnia and Burnaby, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of talk, and I don't know if I think I grabbed it for tonight's episode. There's a lot of talk about the two other pipelines going to one of the more northern ports. I think it was Prince Rupert. Very interesting. We're going to go into that talk tomorrow, but they want to block that already.
Sean says, I can only imagine if Carney tried to seal the Alberta border, what Trump would do. Trump would free the hostages. True. And Pete says, dummies, your Canadian pipeline gets paid for one way with Alberta oil.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now let me see if we have other ones. James Hunt says, I looked it up, and yes, Carney did give up his UK and Irish passports. Just saying it's not hard to hold multiple passports at all.
Yeah.
It's not.
And it's not where your passports are, it's where your loyalties lie. And this is one of the big things about having mass immigration, especially when you're recruiting mass immigration into your military in your higher ranks as officers from India and China. Where's Mark Carney's loyalties lie? I think they lie with the city of UK and British royalty and globalists. I don't trust the guy as far as I can throw him.
Todd asks, why can't I be premier? You can. Rocking Around says, hey, Nat and the guy, you should reach out to past premier of Newfoundland, Brian Peckford. He was part of the 1982 Canadian Constitution, and he has a lot to say. Oh yeah, I'd love to talk. I used to watch his speeches during the Freedom Convoys.
That's a good suggestion. And I've seen some of his interviews recently as well.
Saltius Maximum says, now you're seeing how economic power couples work for the benefit of their rich friends. And Rage Against Machine says, sacrificing little ones, I'm going to have to say, because otherwise YouTube gets angry.
Well, they have so much money. What does money mean to them? Absolutely nothing. It's pure power on this scale. And Canada is being weaponized against the United States right now. That is obvious.
Saltius says, you guys put on a great show. Thank you so much. And says, your coffee mug needs a Nat and the Guy sticker. LOL. Eventually we'll have our
one day.
One day when we
one
can
step
get
at
to
a
it.
time. We've been ordering new equipment. We're waiting for it to come, but we almost got ripped off with it.
Yes.
Luckily, we canceled it. We had to reorder it. So now it's taking double the amount of time. And I'm watching it every day to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Yes.
Sometimes it's hard to get equipment here in Mexico.
Yeah, because eventually it said it was going to come in November, and we can't really use it in November. We have no use for it then. But let's go into, what was it? Alberta's Canada. We call it that way because Alberta is the only thing still holding up Canada that's falling apart.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And I think we're starting with Bill C-22 here. And this was actually a really good little clip from Northern Perspective. They've been uncovering a lot of things with the federal government lately, and I really, my hat's off to them. I know they don't support Alberta independence. That being said, they help Alberta independence by uncovering so much things with the federal government with their in-depth investigations.
And Northern Perspective says secret orders in C-22. When I read that when I was gathering the stories, it kind of sounded like Execute Order 66, but Execute Order C-22 now.
So I decided I was going to write a parliamentary brief. It says submitted to Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security, submitted by Ryan Davies, former Chief Information Officer, perspective 20 years of experience in process design, organizational design, infrastructure, architecture, information systems, cyber risk, and public sector technology operations. So I'm not going to take you through the whole thing because it is long, but this is the executive summary. So what I say here is that from the perspective of a Chief Information Officer, the big problem that I see that C-22 is trying to solve is that it's trying to solve a process issue with technology. And this is all too common. And I say here, Bill C-22 appears to diagnose a process problem, namely timely access to warrants, orders, and lawful assistance, and then attempts to solve it by changing technology, architecture, security posture, and data retention obligations. Mature IT governance does the opposite. Frameworks such as ITIL, COBIT, and Lean Six Sigma begin with root cause analysis, process clarity, governance, controls, measurement, and continuous improvement. Technology is then applied to support an optimized process.
So if you were to receive a secret ministerial order to install a device or create a capability for law enforcement to circumvent those advertised privacy controls, how would you be able to tell your users that those things that you're advertising are no longer allowable?
We wouldn't. And this is a major issue. I'm going to let my colleague Robin go into this in more detail because this is an important question.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting this question forward. Ultimately, as drafted, the bill has a blanket secrecy provision that would essentially prevent us from being able to...
And this is a huge problem, blanket secrecy. We know Bill C-22 is being passed, but once it's actually implemented, you're not going to hear another word about it because they're not allowed to talk about it. The companies that are going to be forced to implement it.
Explain to our users that these changes had been made.
And again, it says here, Meta warned Parliament that Bill C-22 could secretly force companies to make privacy-altering changes, then legally prevent them from telling Canadians what changed. So the companies wouldn't even be able to say, oh, by the way, your government is making us do X, Y, Z, as they were kind of able to do when they did the whole News Act.
Or if they were called to testify, or if they were put on an interview with Joe Rogan, they wouldn't be able to talk about any of this. This is how Canada is trying to work under a veil of secrecy, and they write it into their laws.
And I'm guessing because they learned of that last hubbub that came up with the news and Meta and Google and etc. when they passed their last stupid law. Okay, next. The Globe and Mail says, quote, federal government orders financial audit into Indigenous Languages Office.
Yeah, and what I was going to say about this is they built an entire industry. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. Everybody knows there's massive amounts of corruption. So they're going to try to fix one little corner of it and say, oh, it's all fixed. See what we did. See what we did. We uncovered $1 billion worth of fraud. So we fixed it. No, we know you've built an entire industry around this. We know you're trying to strip sovereignty away from provinces, away from citizens with UNDRIP laws, with private property rights being stripped, with specialty groups and classes like First Nations, like LGBTQ. This really hurts society. Everybody's not equal under the eyes of the law anymore.
Mm-hmm. And again, being able to use these groups to further themselves, further where their money goes, and be able to hide it better by funding things that maybe they don't even fully want to fund. They're not for these causes. They're just using them as masks for what they are actually doing, like the UNDRIP laws.
I would say they're doing more than just using them. They have them locked in this spider web of billion-dollar corruption, and everybody will be arrested within the First Nations if this ever comes out. So they have to just keep cooperating, going along to getting along. There's no way out. It's a system of corruption that has been set up, and unless we tear down the entire system, and there's no way to really do that other than Alberta independence. It's not necessarily breaking down the system, it's breaking free from the system.
Kind of like the mafia. And lastly, Jajan Exer says, quote, 143,000 postcards from everyday Canadians hidden in a Senate mailroom in Gatineau. Canadians took the time to write their names, addresses, and real concerns about Bill C-9 and freedom of religion, and the Senate is deliberately keeping them from the senators who are supposed to read them before they vote. This isn't deficiency, this is straight up suppression of Canadian voices. Hold on.
I think here this morning, quickly running up to my committee meeting, but I wanted to update you with a breaking news story. So Senate is working on Bill C-9, and can you believe it? There have been thousands of postcards sent by individual Canadians to the senators in regards to this issue, this freedom of religion issue. And those postcards are being held in the mailroom in Gatineau. So it's very difficult for a senator to even go and see how many of these postcards have been sent to them.
A group called For My Canada, comprised of concerned Canadians, sent thousands of postcards about Bill C-9 to senators in a mass mailing campaign. Each of these postcards bears a Canadian's full name and address. Why is the Senate administration curtailing the right of Canadians to express their opposition to this highly controversial amended government bill to senators before we will vote on it in this chamber?
Canadians are writing to senators, and it may appear the same, but they are from individuals. So that's the point I wanted to raise, and I wanted to know if you were aware of that.
The postcards, a sample of those postcards was sent to each senator. To be efficient, the steering committee agreed that we do not distribute all of the postcards to prevent disruptions and delays to regular mail services.
This is an outrage, really. You're getting in the way of all democracy.
And you can't change things through a petition. You can't change things through a postcard. You just can't change things in Canada, and that's the way it works from here on in, I guess.
Well, yeah, your voice doesn't matter because it gets in the way of what their paragraphs and what they want to do. So let's silence you and continue to silence you, but not silencing Stephen Jensen. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says tech bros should work together and shut down all social media to Canada for one day. Then we'll see how fast the bozos would shut down that law. True, but I mean, it might make other people really happy to not have social media.
Oh God! And then what happened? It was Tibet. They had that huge uprising in Tibet. Wasn't it Tibet?
Tibet? No.
Where they overthrew the government because of social media.
Oh, where was it? That? I can't remember.
Well, I think it was
Indonesia. No, somewhere in Asia. Okay. Let me look it up, and you keep talking.
Well, what's the last story for this section anyway? Oh, that was the last story. But it's absolutely ridiculous. The mechanisms that are supposed to be there, whether it's a petition or whether it's postcards, aren't even able to make a change. We can't even get a binding referendum. Nepal, yeah. Even if we do get that binding referendum, the UCP passes laws where they're able to have the final say and they have to certify it. It's craziness. Okay, let's go into comments and then we're going to go into Alberta and the world.
Yes, thank you so much once again, Stephen Jensen, for that super chat. But let's go into the rest of the comments. Where were we? Because I have to go find. Todd says, I would like to be that one guy in the movie, The Campaign, lol, only not like him. I don't think I've watched it. But again, I did recommend another movie if anybody's interested about a Yes campaign that they had to do in Chile. It's called Yes or C. No, it's called No. Sorry, a No campaign. It's called No. It's about the campaign that had to do against Pinochet in Chile. But it's about how to campaign and how they used marketing to be able to campaign for a no vote. And they won. Todd says Will Ferrell was a politician, and who was the guy who ran against him again? I haven't seen the movie, but we'll tell the guy to maybe watch it. Todd says, okay, now they're all talking about the movie. Pete says MPs are pro-federal conservative. They're Ottawa-based and refuse to take a stand on Alberta's independence. They are Polyev announcers.
Absolutely. And
Northern perspective.
And well, yeah, absolutely. I used to give them quite a hard time, but their investigations are pretty hard hitting, and they got a lot of inside sources. So they're unraveling a lot of things that are going on with the federal government that really, really helps Alberta independence. It shows the absolute rot of the system, and there's no way to fix it. I mean, if you were to ask Northern Perspective, I'm sure they would say, oh, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party, I'm almost certain and confident that they want to continue the federalization of natural resources, and it's not a good thing for the citizens. It's going to take sovereignty away from the provinces. The federal government wants to go federal at this point. They want to take away provincial rights and sovereignty.
Oh, and again, Todd asks, when's the last time you've seen The Campaign Guy? You got to watch it. If you haven't, totally relevant to the times. I think it's a comedy.
Oh, I can't.
With Will Ferrell, because I just saw someone mention Will Ferrell.
I don't know if I've ever seen it. Maybe we'll check it out.
Ghost of a Chance says Denise Batters is a great senator. I'm guessing that lady. Stephen Jensen says government shut it down so people couldn't organize. Yep.
Yeah.
Because Stephen Jensen says it was Tibet. I'm pretty sure it was Nepal because it was a One Piece thing.
Yeah,
because then here in Mexico, they kind of mimicked what was happening in Nepal and used all the One Piece imagery, which I don't love anime. But
is Nepal in Tibet though?
Tibet is in Nepal. It's close to Nepal.
I don't know. Let's
not show our ignorance. John says, did you watch Starship Troopers yet, Nat? Yeah, I've seen it, but I was commenting on the actual Star Wars ones. Rockin' Around says, great show tonight, Nat and the guy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yo Daddy says, don't forget Kenny said Chugs would revolt violently against Albertans.
The who?
CHUGS.
Oh, okay.
Gregory J. Burns says it's a poll, a plebiscite, not a referendum. Kind of, I guess. I mean, because it's non-binding, then yeah, that kind of makes it more.
We need to start taking hard action to decrease the timeline that this thing is on. Danielle Smith has really set the framework up, saying, "Oh, I couldn't call the binding referendum," which she could, and now she's going to say after, "Well, I still can't call it. We have to wait to the court case." We need to set up a plan to oust Danielle Smith and take control of the UCP. Period.
And hold on. Oh, and Sean says it was Nepal.
Oh, okay.
I knew it.
Let's go into Alberta and the world here. And I think we got 3 stories. And I will say after this, we are going to go to RUMBLE. There were some technical difficulties this morning with the sound, so we had to cut it short once we went over there. Hopefully it works today. Let us know if there is sound once we do go over there tonight, though.
Yeah, let us know now if you can hear us now.
I started watching the replay later, and it cut out extremely early on the replay for RUMBLE.
Interesting. And we've been having issues with RUMBLE. It's not it's last week as well, but Mbrand75 says he just runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. Well, I'm going to go over to the EU, trash the United States, and cozy up to China.
Their Prime Minister Carney has decided that it might be better to improve relations with the United States instead of with China, as he implied.
And yeah, this is from Victor David Hansen. He has his own podcast now. Absolutely phenomenal. I believe he's the most cited professor, if not in the world, within the United States for sure. And he has even though he's from academia, he's very working class. He grew up on a farm and things like that. So a lot of the issues he talks about are very relevant to Alberta as well. Why don't we read Stephen Jensen's comment real quick, and then we'll go back in.
Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. And I think this one's for you. Asks, don't think Quebec would allow nationalization of their natural resources, for example, like electricity and natural gas.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. They haven't accessed a lot of them because they want their remittance payments other than mining. They're going to do all the other provinces first, and then they'll come to Quebec absolutely last once they flooded them with mass migration and other things. And I believe the strategy, and they have it normalized within Quebec right now that, they can flood immigrants in there as long as they don't have citizenship, because a lot of Quebecers are under the impression, it's fine if they have PR status as long as they don't have citizenship status. They'll fast track them at the end. So Yeah, but I think they'll leave Quebec for last.
But thank you so much, Stephen Jensen.
It'd be better to improve relations with the United States instead of with China, as he implied earlier
pause
in
it one
his
more time.
challenge to Donald Trump.
And when they're going to start this federalization of natural resources, I believe they're going to start with all the Western provinces. They're going to make it look like it's an alignment between the Western provinces, that they're all getting something out of it, that this is a great thing. They're going to pitch it as to the people as, oh, we're developing the natural resource sector, but it's a federalization of the natural resource sector. So they're going to be able to do it province by province by making it look like it's actually an idea coming from the provinces itself and inter-cooperation between BC, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. It's going to hurt the citizens overall, I believe.
You good?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. He thinks in like 2 second delay. Okay, back to the clip.
He has decided that it might be better to improve relations with the United States instead of with China, as he implied earlier in his challenge to Donald Trump. I was wondering what you make of
He just runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. I mean, he got in this tiff with Donald Trump, and all he had to do was say, yes, there is a problem with Canada and the United States. We're a small country, and we're running a huge trade surplus with you, $53 billion a year, and we're going to work on that. Number two, yes, we're a member of NATO, and of the 32 members, we're number second from the last. We only spend 1.5% of GDP on defense. We've broken our promise. We said we were going to do 2%. But what the world needs now in the North American sphere of NATO are icebreakers, because the Arctic is becoming very important. So that's one thing that we're really good at. We used to have the 4th largest Navy in the world, so we're going to have a multi-billion-dollar plan on icebreakers, and we'll get up to the 2% and we'll make the 5%. And then he can say, there's been a lot of problems on oil, and we have kind of presented it that we have this oil and we supply Detroit and the border states in the north with oil, and we've done you a big favor. All he had to do was say, you know what, this is a mutually beneficial relationship, because these come out of the tar sands of Alberta, and it's very hard to refine. It's very hard to put them in a pipeline, go all the way to Vancouver. So what we find really advantageous for us and for you is for us to build pipelines across the border to serve this huge American market that has the refinery capacity to turn high tar oil into gasoline. So let's do it. But he took, when Trump was sort of baiting him about making Alberta the 51st state or Canada the first, that was sort of like Greenland, and no,
Okay,
it was just
we
a
can
way
leave
of
it there, and I highly recommend going to watch Victor David Hansen. Long before we were supporters of Alberta independence, I was watching Victor David Hansen. Yes, he's an academic, but he's one of the leading conservative minds. Number one, he was raised on a farm, so he understands the real economy, real values, and how things should really work.
Why does he sound like Darth Vader? Does he always sound like that, or
Yeah,
did he
yeah.
have some issues?
He always sounds like that. He seems a little tired or sick there. No, he's usually a little bit more energized.
But
He always sounds like that.
That's not. I mean, he should get checked if he's not being checked.
Okay, let's
that's a
continue
long
on.
thing.
Let's continue on here, Nat.
CTV question. Well, it's in case you sound the same. Please go get checked. CTV question period says, "Quote: European Union is obviously a matter of geography, but it's also a matter of values." Says Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. There we go.
And
about
again,
the prospect of Canada.
Canada, the EU coming together. Alberta needs to get out of this relationship with Canada before Canada starts their new relationship with the EU and really becomes part of this global infrastructure.
Run.
I interviewed actually a few weeks ago one of your colleagues in the Nordic countries in Finland, and he made a lot of headlines for his view of Canada and perhaps joining the EU. Not to say that this is actually happening or anything like that. What is your opinion on that, Prime Minister?
Well, European Union is obviously a matter of geography. You can hear that from the name, but it is also a matter of values and a matter of what countries would you like to integrate together with in different aspects. So it's not for me to say, but the European Union is a very welcoming club for like-minded.
I interviewed
Freaking villain there.
No shit.
And I'm going to tell you this, Canada is meant to be the piggy bank of the globalist. It was USAID and the United States for a long time. Trump is severing that. And I don't think whoever gets in power is going to be very likely to start opening up the taps for the money again. And I think they're looking at Canada to link up with the EU and then federalize its natural resources. You see everything happening kind of simultaneously, but very slowly, moving closer to the EU as they're federalizing natural resources. That money from those resources are going to go to the globalists, not to the citizens of provinces. And this is why Alberta needs freedom now.
Again, with the insane prospect of Canada joining the EU. But again, if you think about it for 2 seconds, it kind of does make a lot of sense because they're trying to destroy their countries in very similar ways, especially because right now Mark Carney is there and he is one of the ones that helped leapfrog Britain into the mess that it is right now.
They have no way to make money in the EU. They're not manufacturing anything because oil prices got too high and all the manufacturing from Europe has already left to the United States. That had already happened a few years ago. And then on top of that, they have no real natural resources either. They have no way to make money. They're a banking cartel. They move money around and print money, and the gig's up on that. Real economies are rising to the top now. And that's why they're looking at Canada as that bailout, because it actually does have a real economy if it would just access it. But they want to keep the restrictions on there and repress it until they can link it up with the globalists.
And they can completely use it just for themselves and control all the mechanisms that go into that production. But lastly, speaking of controlling mechanism and production, I did watch this clip earlier today. The Vigilant Fox with Dave Rubin talking to, or encircled, surrounded, I think it's called, by a bunch of communists and trying to explain to someone and use logic with a young lady that doesn't understand anything.
And if she wants to own nothing and be happy, just move to Canada.
Hold on. But I do think Dave Rubin did a good job here.
Do you not want people to own private property?
Well, I'm definitely anti-capitalist, I would say.
Yeah.
So I would say that workers should own the means of production.
Right. Oh, so you're a communist?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know.
What is communism?
I haven't talked to a real life communist.
What's
in
a
while.
communist?
Well, you want the people to own the means of production.
Yeah.
And you don't seem to believe in
the people
private
who create
property.
the people who create value, as in create value of commodities, should own the actual value that they create from.
And this makes no sense because the best system, if you want the workers to own the means of production, is capitalism. It allows for a communist system to work inside of it. Workers can start their own companies. There's a paper mill within British Columbia that does exactly what she's kind of saying. The workers actually own the means of production. Capitalism allows for all kinds of other systems to work with inside of it, including communism. Communism does not allow for capitalism to work inside of it. This is why I prefer capitalism.
And again, it doesn't end up being the workers, it ends up being the elites within the government. We've already seen it happen a million times.
That process, yes.
So my answer, if you want the people, everyone in this room and everyone in this country to have more, what I would want is that you would take less from them. So you tax everybody less. You remove regulation. You create the conditions for competition and capitalism so that more people will have more of their money. I want you, I assume you work. Do you work?
Yeah.
Do you pay taxes?
Yeah.
I want you to keep more of your money.
Right.
I don't know what you do. I don't know how much you earn. Whatever it is you earn, I want you to have more of that money so that you can put that money back into the system.
The majority of wealth in the system is owned by 1% of the population. You understand that, right? And where does that wealth come from?
Wait, 1% of the population. Do you know how much percent they pay in taxes? That 1%?
Not nearly enough, because the majority of their wealth comes from.
It's 47%. Hold on. So 1% of the population pay 47%. You accept that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be their fair share?
What percent of that?
What would be their fair share?
I just wanted to note here the little fact check Jubilee came up with, because it says it's not 47% that they pay in taxes. It's between 38 and 40, and some of it can go up to 46%. So yes, it is. You're just nitpicking to help her make her stupid point.
Actual wealth that they own. That again, majority of these lineages of power and ownership.
What would be their fair share? What would be their fair share?
Accumulation of.
What would be their fair share?
I would say that the fact that they own so much. You're not letting me finish
47% in taxes.
Here's my problem. You're not letting me finish the point, so we can't get from point A to B. Do you understand that?
Okay, so
cool.
if you accept that 1%,
there's not going to be a fair share when their wealth is coming from the back ends of colonialism. So that's not going to work.
And again,
we went all the way to colonialism at the end because she ran out of things to say.
Well, and again, these communism, if they worked as half as hard as they wanted to debate or do what else they do with their day, they could start a company with other communism and own the means of production. That actually exists within the United States, within Spain as well. Capitalism allows for other economic systems to work inside of it. It just doesn't succeed because they don't work hard enough.
Mm-hmm. Now we'll go into your comments, and then we'll head over onto Arya and Bailey. Hopefully the sound keeps up and it works. Ghost of a Chan says, Quebec has hydro. They leave their natural gas in the ground to duct tea for
Well, and it's a big scam the way they calculate their hydro as well. And they do access their mining. I will say that. And when we talked to Nico from Quebec, it was very interesting because he said actually most of Quebec is conservative. It's just Montreal that's liberal. If they ever did get independence, I think you would see conservatism really rise up into the government. They would have to pull up their bootstraps, actually start to access their natural resources as well. Mm-hmm. So right now they're part of a government that allows them to be on the welfare program. Why are they going to work hard?
And Sean says, okay, a bit of an explainer, and thank you. This is kind of what I wanted. So, Victor Davis Hanson, one of the heads of the Hoover Institute at Stanford, professor emeritus at Fresno State University, former head visiting professor at Pepperdine University, chairman of multiple organizations. Victor Davis Hanson almost died of a mini stroke at the beginning of the year. He was treated at Stanford's hospital, had to have 2 surgeries, was due to problems with the first. He was gone for 2 months.
That's why I haven't seen him in quite a while, because I used to watch him on a regular basis. It's a shame that he's having to do the podcast full time now.
Well, maybe he wants
to. Maybe he wants to, but man.
To get back in. I mean, I know a lot of people that are that kind of academic-y minded people, and they can't not work. That's all they know how to do.
As far as conservative academics go, I think he's the best. And number 2 would be Thomas Sowell, but Thomas Sowell's too old now. I don't even know if he's still alive.
He's passed, I think.
I keep seeing interviews come out with
No, they're old ones. They recycled them a bunch, yeah.
Okay.
Sean said, I think he passed quite a while ago.
I'm going to check.
Okay, you check. Because I think I looked it up one time, and because of that. Sean says, slaves didn't add really any value to the USA. Most of the very small group of buildings built by slaves were destroyed during the Civil War. The USA, like Canada, was not colonized nations. Sorry, I can't say it. Ghost of a Chance says the lack of icebreakers lies squarely on Stephen Harper's shoulders. Did you figure it out?
Yeah, he is still alive.
He is?
Yeah. He was born in 1930. Yeah. He turned 95 in 2025. He's still alive.
I don't think he is.
He is. And I had seen one recently with the Daily Wire as well. But he's not obviously as spry.
Can't really talk.
He is. I guarantee you.
Thomas Sowell.
And if you don't know who Thomas Sowell is, I highly recommend him, as well as Victor David Hanson. He's an economist that really...
No, he's not died.
No, he's not. That's what I was saying. So Thomas Sowell is still alive, but he's not as well spoken as before. So I don't think, and he doesn't do hardly any interviews. He mainly goes
He's retired.
He mainly goes with the one interviewer he built a relationship over his career with.
Really thought he had died.
No.
Sorry, Mr. Sowell did not, or Professor Sowell, I guess, did not mind to say
but we need a new generation of Thomas Sowells and Victor David Hansons coming up. So,
Daryl Robinson says, hello, Premier Smith announced the new medical chartered services, and I think it is a good funding model. Public system is a good funding model. It's the one that has proven to work throughout most of the world, better than others.
There's still going to be too much control by the federal government. Even if we make small progress now on the long timeline, the federal government will be able to restructure whatever they want, whenever they want. This is why we need freedom. And I truly believe over the next 6 months, as we lead up to this first referendum, and the next year or however long it takes to get to the binding referendum, people are going to say, oh yeah, things are getting better. Things are getting better. It's a freaking trick. If you can't see that at this point, they're going to take full federalized control over everything. They're going to make it look like you have short-term gain, so you vote against your own interest and you vote against independence and freedom.
As most people have been doing for a long time within Canada. Stephanie Barg, hello, says, we just need to become independent because most people cannot afford to not leave Canada. Cannot afford to leave Canada. Sorry, there we go.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's everybody leave. let the chunk leave. Saltius Maximus says it all comes down to theft of property. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It also says equalization is welfare. Quebec is thinking 100 years ahead to save their natural wealth.
Yeah, they are. And they've been preparing for independence with their economy as well. It looks a lot weaker on the outside, but when you start digging into it, they've been preparing for independence. Although independence isn't as popular as it used to be within Quebec.
And Sean says Thomas Sowell is still alive, but very private, also at Stanford Hoover Institute. Well, I mean, he's...
All the good people are coming down there.
Let him rest. Let the poor man rest a little bit. 1930. he was born. That's insane. Lutsko says
he was debunking a lot of this liberal ideology before it was even a thing in the modern context.
Yeah, a lot is owed to him. Lutsko says, what about a flat 10% flat tax across the board on all earnings above 75,000, zero deductions, no taxes?
Yeah, I would actually say no taxes on citizens. You actually tax private businesses and things like that. And that's how a lot of these other countries with similar economic frames to Alberta work. Only Alberta's economic frame is much, much stronger because they have much more natural resources, whether it's the Rocky Mountains or the oil and natural gas. So I would say there should be no reason to tax citizens. I know that's a radical thought, especially when you're comparing it to Canada, but every other nation that has a similar but weaker economic structure to Alberta has no taxes on its citizens. You actually make very little taxes when it comes to your citizens in the first place.
Todd says, maybe we should just let him have communism, move to the United States, and wait for them to deal with Canada. Hopefully join the U.S. military and help them out.
Alberta needs its independence. It needs its freedom. Ultimately, if somebody like a Gavin Newsom comes in there, packs the courts, makes Puerto Rico a state, things like this, you may see American conservatives fleeing to Alberta, which has voted conservative for the last 93 years. It could be the refuge for Americans one day.
True. Sean says, Walter Williams, his professor, did pass away. That's why you may be confused in that. No, because I don't know who that is, I don't think, but maybe within my head. Rage Against Machine says, beware, I'm here from the government to help. And finally, Lutsko says, an independent Alberta should look at Poland for how they set up their medical services and lucrative medical tourism industry. If there's a will, there's a way. And if you want to find a system that actually works, there are some around the world that Alberta could look at. And again, I don't even think promoting or thinking about healthcare as being free or fully free is the way we should go.
We need trustworthy people and radical transparency. And we may need to use AI in some ways to bring a transparency in there, because especially when we're setting up systems, you're going to see a lot of these countries set up system to breed corruption into the system because they want to figure out how to get the wealth out. We don't need the most productive system. We need the most transparent and trustworthy system so people know. I don't mind overpaying for it, because even if we overpay, we're going to be underpaying because we're going to be cutting out massive amounts of corruption.
But now we're heading over to RUMBLE. Thank you so much for joining us here on YouTube. Before you go over to RUMBLE, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Again, it really does help us out if you feel so inclined.
We are a very small channel, and we do recognize every single subscriber. Thanks to Steven Jensen and everybody else that super chatted today. We really appreciate that as well.
Exactly. And you can find our channel name down here. There's a 30-second wait screen, and then we'll pop up over there.
Let's get ready to